Hello, everybody. My name is Diane Parks, and today I'll be talking with David, one of my amazing clients, and asking him some honest questions to share his feedback about momentum coaching and his experience with me as his career coach. Hey, David, how you doing?
Hi, Dine. Good to see you again. Very good. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm doing great. So thank you for making time for me today. I really appreciate that.
Of course. Happy to.
So let's start with just doing an introduction. If you'd share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure thing. My name is David Estupinan. I come from Colombia. Um, I work as a UX designer right now in a health company. And yeah, I've been in the US since 2020 and actually met you through a program called Upwardly Global, which helps uh, people recently in the U.S. market to kind of get up to speed with the corporate world and kind of get in their career path.
Yeah, I was trying to think back when we first met. It's hard to believe. It feels like it's been a while as I was thinking back since April 2022. And so let's get started. First thing I'm curious about is we connected through Upwardly Global, and you had the opportunity to either stay with me as a coach or choose another coach. But you chose to stay with me. And so I'm curious, first thing, what resonated with you about our partnership or the good fit that you thought we would be to be partners?
Well, I think back to that time as kind of like just being a good fit. Like, because I remember Upwardly Global was initially pairing us to connect more on like a language level
Yeah.
to get up to speed with like corporate speak and like how like the ways in which it's better to communicate as a as an immigrant in your in your desired field or career path. But through me telling you my story and like how I had already been in the US previously and had some experience kind of like working in the US, we kind of quickly bonded and were getting more into like the details of career goals and making a plan for the long term. And by then, I was recently hired at this health company, so I think we just clicked, at a personal level, and I felt like your all the knowledge and all the tools and all the experience that you had kind of like meshed well with what I was looking for, and also what you could teach me. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that moment when we realized that what thought you were getting was not what was offered, because we had a moment of, oh, wait a minute, this isn't matching up. And I remember we both kind of chuckled about it, and you're like, wow, well, what next? And then
Yeah.
I tentatively said, well, actually, I think we still might be able to do good work together. And it seemed like
Yeah.
it really just took off from there. Yeah, that was I remember that conversation because of the disconnect initially. We're like, what? And worked right through it.
Because it was more of a language communication coaching,
Yeah.
but because Upwardly Global has people that might be very new to the US and very new to just speaking English,
Yeah.
um, at a kind of like at a work level. So I think that was the original goal, but then your background was also coaching just like as a career coach, and I think it matched perfectly
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
with what
I agree. Yeah. So
I
tell me,
didn't know I needed, and so that worked out.
well, right? And that was the interesting moment for us is my thinking, oh, well, not the right match. He's looking for something else. And then realizing, oh, wait, there is an opportunity here. Who knew that it was there? So thinking back on that time, you brought some very specific challenges to the conversation, our very first conversation. Can you remember and share at least two challenges, if not just one, that you knew you were facing that led you to ask and look to engage a coach?
I think there were plenty of challenges, if I remember correctly. Just like getting started in that career path again, back in the US, kind of like fitting in and making sure that I was maximizing those opportunities. I remember questions about like how to, well, communication, right? How to communicate in an effective way. The way one learns English just to communicate with people in general is not the same way we speak at a corporate level. It's not the same way we speak in leadership calls, and there's a certain communication dialect that I'm sure other people know, in the corporate world, that you have to be able to navigate that kind of language to be able to succeed and to be able to be seen as somebody who knows what they're talking about, knows their skill, knows their area of expertise, and commands that respect and that uh, worthiness to be sat at that table, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember us talking at length about really communication to influence, right? You didn't lack the words. It was really, how do I influence? I've got project teams, I've got stakeholders, I've got senior leaders, because your work spans across functions and groups and teams as a UX
Yeah.
designer. And I remember that was really, how do I navigate kind of all those conversations and feel comfortable and competent, right? And confident. Yeah. So tell me, what
Yeah.
about the coaching do you think helped you to begin to address those challenges that you were facing as you were integrating into kind of a new world and a new way to communicate in that world?
Well, I mean, I think we always brought to each session like real life scenarios that had just happened or that had been going on, or things that I was learning along the way that were happening at my company. And you were always really good at kind of like um, unpacking that situation and making sure that we understood all of those components that made that situation what
Yeah.
like untangling that situation. I think that was really crucial because you know at that early stage it was very difficult to really see what was going on in the bigger picture. um and I remember a lot of those conversations, a lot of the your perspective was, well, you already have a lot of experience in big companies, and you already have a lot of experience in how leaders communicate with their subordinates and how to communicate across different teams with people that are not in your same discipline but that need something from you, or you need something from them. So a lot of those conversations were just kind of like making sure that we could unpack all of that stuff, untangle it, and for me to understand and kind of like learn the ropes. So that was immensely valuable.
Yeah. And what was really helpful to me as your coach too is that you did bring in real situations. So you didn't get stuck in your head about theory. You were like, this has happened or this is coming up. I need to look at this.
Yes.
And it was really, I found it really engaging for me as a coach to just be your thought partner. Like, okay, let's look at this. And hopefully
Yeah.
to ask you good questions, because as you were sharing, you already had so much knowledge and expertise. It was about applying it with more, perhaps with more confidence and really
Yeah.
leaning into it in a different way. And you were great about bringing really good topics in for us to work with. So tell
Yeah,
me,
and I also remember that because I started as a contractor and I wanted to move to a full-time position, that was always like the first goal, like the first milestone was to do that. So I was like always bringing up ways to get that guidance in order to achieve that.
and you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
exciting when you were brought on board, and not
Yeah.
at an easy time. For companies across the US, the last few years have been very dynamic and changing rapidly. Really a sense of hard to hang on and keep up. So your
Yeah.
situation, of course, was surrounded by all of that, and yet you were hired on. and they saw a lot of value in you. So tell me, like, where does the rubber hit the road? Tell me what you noticed back on the job, like in as you put to use the things that we talked about and unpacked in the coaching session. What difference did it make in your job, in your career?
Well, I mean, on the communication side, I, it was like night and day. Like I could tell that I was making a lot of progress in the way I could communicate both with my manager at the time as well as my peers, and that just brought me a lot of confidence. I feel like that was a major confidence booster to know that, okay, if I learn, if I kind of just get a map of how to get to this place that I want to be at, I can get there provided that I have the right tools. And yeah, I could see the progress, and I think you could tell as well, from the beginning of when I started the company to the first year, that was a big change, right? And then once that goal was achieved, it was like, okay, now the next goal. And so new tools needed to come to the table. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know how it is from your perspective, but I'm sure it can feel like there was year by year there was a lot of progress.
Yeah. Oh, you made progress very quickly. I will say that. And of all my clients, it was one of the things I noticed about you. You came in very committed and you leaned right in. You weren't afraid to try things like, okay, I'm going to put that in place. We'll see what happens. And
Yeah.
really, really taking very seriously your plan. And you wrote a beautiful goal statement and a beautiful plan. It, for me as a coach, that makes it super easy, right? Because then I know here's where you are, here's where you want to be. Now we can work on just closing that gap, which you did
Yeah.
so. And one of the main things I think I noticed, David, was your confidence and your presence. Like even when you showed up on our calls, you were showing up differently, like very
Yeah.
confident. This is
Well, yeah,
right? And then in meetings, you would,
really look forward to them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so did I. Isn't that nice? That's a good indication about fit. But, and I do remember as you began to have meetings with higher level people, you maintain that confidence. And one thing I really admired about you is when I said, go get feedback. Like ask people that you trust that are around you, ask them for feedback. And I don't know, at first you were kind of like, and then you jumped right in. And that really seemed to accelerate your progress quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, that helped a lot. I feel like at that time my team was a lot more, it was a tighter knit team, and the manager as well was very proactive. So those were also really important ingredients that helped kind of apply the tools and apply the tips and tricks and you know the process that you were teaching me, because that made a big difference. And getting that feedback and putting myself out there at the time. Like I remember one of the goals at some point was also to be able to present more and to be able to talk to a wider audience in different scenarios. So that was all possible because of that constant feedback, and being able to muster the courage to ask for that feedback.
Yes. Yeah. And as you said earlier, resources matter. And you were well resourced, I think, all the way around and took advantage of those resources, which I think makes a huge difference. And I've told you, I know when we've had our sessions in the past, I have no magic here, right? I'm going to lean into and ask good questions and level my resources, but also make sure you're leveling your resources up to make sure that they're carrying you through and helping you improve and grow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking back on the journey. Feels really good as we're talking to think back
I
about
know.
progress. So let me ask you another question. As you think about where you are now and moving into the future, and you consider the coaching partnership that we had, the work that we did, what do you see as possible for you now in the future that may not have been possible if we hadn't partnered and worked together?
Just like the idea of expanding the horizon and making sure that you know, having almost like an accountability buddy, like having that extra support, that extra um coaching. I mean, it's in the name of the tin, but it really does help to be able to bounce those ideas, unpack things that happen at work. I feel like those are the possibilities that, you know, come up, and I'm able to use that in future opportunities.
Mm.
So, work and a career will throw all kinds of things at you, but you're not going to know all the answers, right? And I feel like that's the case. Like now I know that, if something comes my way that I don't fully understand, or that I need some support with, I can come to you, and we can work on it, and kind of like put our brains together and say like, okay, well, what's happening here? Do we need to talk about, competencies, or do we need to talk about leadership? What is like there are many different things that might not come to my mind right away, but that you have a more, a broader experience on the topic.
Yeah, and don't forget, you know a lot more than you always think you do, right? And that was one of the things I know we had happen in a few sessions. I go, well, wait a minute, let me just reflect back what I just heard. And you'd be like, oh, yeah. So a lot of the times it is that space that gives the opportunity to just investigate and explore that creates those
Yeah.
possibilities in the future. Yeah. Well, David, I have one more question before we close up our conversation. What would you say to prospective clients that are considering me as a possible coach for them?
I mean, in short, like you won't go wrong. There's such a there's such value in having you on our corner, like as somebody who's looking to improve themselves, and as somebody who's like looking to, go to the next level, whether it's career oriented, or making a switch, or making those tough decisions, whether you want to go into independent contractor, or more of like a a business owner, right? Like having you on my side definitely adds that value to say like, okay, well, if something happens, it's, I have somebody to talk about it, somebody to work through these problems, and uh, just create new ideas that, it's easier this way than just trying to figure it out on your own, or trying to figure out like what to do with people that might be going through the same thing, like colleagues, or friends who might be maybe in your same shoes, but they don't have the wealth of knowledge from a coaching perspective that you.
Thank you, David. Yeah. And as I think back on our engagement, it definitely coaching's a team sport. And what you
Yeah.
brought and the clarity you brought, your commitment to really working on the areas that you wanted to and really work your goals until you accomplish them, that makes the whole package come together, right?
Yeah.
None of us can't do it alone. And also, sometimes we just need people to nag us. An accountability partner, right? As you mentioned earlier, just to have somebody in the conversation that you know you're going to have a conversation with later about what you've committed to doing now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part. I don't know about, your the rest of your audience, but for somebody like me who, you know has a lot of things going on, and wants to keep track of everything, and wants to do them all, but sometimes things slip through the cracks. It's really important to have that almost like that filter, that catch all, that is like, well, what happened to this, what happened to that, you mentioned this, last session, let's revisit that. And it's those little details that, they might slip away if you're just trying to do it on your own.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, David, I can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for being with me today, for giving me your honest feedback about momentum coaching, about your experience with me as your career coach. Really appreciate you. And I mean that when I say it, definitely appreciate you and your good partnership.
And I appreciate you, Di. Really, it's been such a good journey, and yeah, I look forward to continuing it, of course. So yeah, thank you for having me as well.
Thank you so much, David.